Assembly and Senate issued statements on Tuesday saying that while they support the Common Core standards, more time is needed to develop a curriculum and train teachers on how to implement it. We're joined by the chairman of the Senate Education Committee, State Senator John Flanagan, to discuss the statements and what they mean for students, parents, teachers, and the state of New York. Welcome back, Senator Flanagan.
Good morning, Susan. Thanks for having me.
So tell us what lawmakers in the state Senate are pushing for.
I think what we're doing is consistent with what we've said all along. You know, we did a series of statewide hearings, issued a report, advanced legislation, passed it through our Education Committee, and we've been very clear with the regents and SED that you need to take action. There are certain things that are within your purview and your discretion, your authority, and we expect you to do the right thing, and frankly, if you don't, we're going to act on your behalf. The regents are meeting next Monday, and they have made it clear based on an appearance by the commissioner at the Education Committee a couple of weeks ago, 2-hour meeting which had a very robust dialogue with 20 of my colleagues, that they are going to have a plan. Our feeling and our concern is while they're going to have a plan, that it's going to fall short of what the concerns are that are out there. We said it then, I've said it before, I said it at the meeting, I said it the other day, and I'll say it right now. If the regents don't come up with a plan that we, and more importantly, parents can embrace and understand and feel good about, then we will step in. I don't know that we... I'm sorry, go ahead.
What are the key elements that you would need to see in such a plan in order for you to not step in?
I would say a couple things. It would have to be aggressive, it would have to be significant, and it would have to be timely. Now, those are sort of amorphous general concepts, but I had expressed this before. One of the things that the department has failed to do is acknowledge in a public way that there have been mistakes made. I don't want to hear talk about things being uneven or not smooth the way they should have been. Stand up and say, we made mistakes. We apologize for those mistakes, and here is our plan to rectify those problems, recognizing some of the shortcomings. Susan, nobody likes to have to do that. I understand that. But that would go a long way to making feel parents that they are being listened to and that actions are being taken. There are a couple of other pressure points that are out there that are really important. You have the new ELA and math exams that are coming up in the latter part of April and early May.
Yeah.
While it seems like it's a long time away, that's what parents are concerned about. How are the kids doing? What's going to be in those tests? What are the cut scores going to be like? How are things going to look at the end of the day? And then equally, if not more important, is regents. You're going to have regents exams at the end of the year, and while ELA and math exams are mandated by federal law, they are not nearly as important as how a child does on a regents. If you have a change in scores and there's a 20 to 25 or 35% drop, you're talking about a kid who may not get out of their grade that they're in, and or they may not graduate from high school, or they may not be accepted to the college of their choice, not necessarily because they're any less well off than they were. They may be getting smarter, but the way these exams are structured could have adverse impacts.
Yeah, their grades will just be lower.
Yeah, those things, you know, when you look at this to a parent's eye, and really when I say parents, it's an extension of the student. You know, the students are the focal point of all this. Teachers, of course, are involved and play a critical role, but we have, over the last several months, I think the growth of consternation and frustration on the part of parents, it's exponential. It's far more than it was 6 months ago.
I want to ask you just a few questions about, again, what you're pushing for. The Assembly has said that it wants to delay the implementation of this for 2 years. Do you agree with that delay?
You know, if you look, there are virtually every major educational organization across the state, the PTA, the school boards, the superintendents, NYSET, principals, administrators, the big 5 school districts, they all support Common Core standards, and they all support the implementation. The problem has been that the implementation has been woeful, to say the least. So there's a very important distinction between a delay on the effects of what's happening as opposed to the delay of the implementation. I believe that most entities and most parents still want this implemented, but they want it done the right way. Now, I don't think I'm oversimplifying this. I look at this as a parent myself. If my child is learning Common Core and they've only been exposed to 20 to 40%. You should not be testing them on 100%. And if a teacher has not had curriculum available to properly prepare and properly teach students, they should not be held accountable in a negative capacity. The discipline that's associated with Common Core is still very well accepted. I was on the phone with a school principal in my hometown this morning in the Smithtown School District talking about the value of these programs. I went to a professional development event in Albany the other day. There were 700 really good teachers, principals, administrators who were learning this stuff. They were happy about it. But, you have to give people the tools, and you have to give them the requisite time to prepare if we expect them to achieve, especially as it relates to students.
So a 2-year delay would be warranted then?
Yes. I think what we're looking at is the first thing that's coming on these exams, in my estimation, why can't you modify these exams not to lower the standards, but rather to recognize what has been taught versus what has not? And then correspondingly, how can you hold a principal or a teacher accountable when they don't have all the information they need? And equally as important, in a timely fashion. I've used this analogy. If I said to you, look, Susan, you're going to teach a course starting in September, and it's going to be based on a book that's 10 chapters, but I tell you I'm only going to give you a chapter a month, how do you properly prepare as an educational professional if you don't know what the whole story is? If I'm giving it to you piecemeal, you're losing something at your professional level. If I'm giving it to you piecemeal, the child that you're teaching is losing something at their level. And if this is supposed to be about, college and career readiness and growth of students as we improve the value of our teaching professionals, I really think that's something that parents understand and embrace. Most of the parents I speak with, they're not afraid of, some rigor and discipline. They just want it done fairly.
We wouldn't even be talking about the Common Core if New York hadn't accepted federal money in exchange for the promise to adopt new standards. So I think an important question is, if New York delays the adoption, is federal money at risk?
The federal government has paid close attention to what is going on in the state of New York, and we have been, right, wrong, or otherwise, the state of New York, because of actions taken by the Regents at SED, we have been in the forefront. So as New York goes, to some extent, so will go the nation and the country. And I would make a respectful distinction. There are approximately 45 states that have adopted Common Core standards. In terms of race to the top money, there's a far smaller number. I think it's only like 12 or 13 states that have gotten race to the top money. So there is some correlation, but it's not an absolute correlation. The genesis of the Common Core standards goes back a number of years to try and, frankly, keep the federal government out of educational policy, but to recognize that we need to raise the standards. So there's a lot of good out there, a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion, and we have a heck of a lot of work to do to make sure that people understand, and more importantly, that we achieve the goals that are intended.
But are we going to lose any federal money if we delay the implementation? I know we've already spent a lot of the money on things like curriculum development, at least the race to the top money. But if this was the carrot, if the money that we received to develop the core curriculum was the carrot, is there a stick involved here?
Yes, I do think there is to a degree, but you could look right now, irrespective of anything that goes forward. There are deadlines that have been missed by the state of New York. For example, we put in our application, here is our plan, and we said that we would have curriculum modules to schools across the state of New York to properly prepare teachers by June 30th, 2013. That didn't happen. The federal government hasn't come back to us and said, we're taking away your money. So I think as long as they feel that there is progress in a positive capacity, I would like to think for sure that they're not going to come in and say, in a draconian fashion, we're taking all this money away, we're stopping it, and we're looking to get it back. There's a massive stake involved at the federal level in terms of how this goes. Because if things don't go well in New York, they're not going to go well anyplace else. And Susan, let me use this as a quick but really important segue.
Yeah.
One of the things we've been saying all along, Senator Skelos had spoken to him at length with my colleagues, we need to have more collegiality, more camaraderie, and more involvement with our federal colleagues, because there is a much more interrelation and much more of an overlay with the federal government in terms of what they do. And whether it's Common Core, Race to the Top, No Child Left Behind, waivers for kids with disabilities, waivers for English language learners. Frankly, for far too long, we have given the federal government more of a pass, and I don't want to impugn any of our federal representatives because they work hard, but they need to recognize, and we need to work more closely with them so the state of New York gets the flexibility that I think we not only deserve, but are entitled to. And we have issues across the state of New York. We still have a significant achievement gap in many areas, but we shouldn't overlook the fact that we have, in any corner of the state, we have fabulous schools, we have great educators, and there are a lot of things that are going very well that should be replicated throughout the state.
Last year, 31%, as you mentioned, of New York students passed the Common Core, but the failure rates were most dramatic among the neediest students. Have you heard, or what have you heard from parents that are worried that some kids might just give up because they're even further behind than they were?
I think that is absolutely spot on. There are kids who are caught in that kind of vortex, and if you are a child who feels that you're not up to par, something like that can have a negative effect, even if state ed and the region say, don't worry. One of the problems that was created was, as this started to occur last year, there was a terrible job done in terms of marketing this. And parents, sure, when your child goes from a 70 to a 30 or a 40 or a 45,
With about 10
you start
seconds.
to think, what the heck is going wrong? And justifiably so. And even if I come to you and you and I have a discussion and I say, well, listen, really don't worry because everyone's kind of in the same boat, you're still looking saying, well, wait a second, my kid went from a B to a D. And you're telling me it's still a B? But I don't really believe you.
State Senator John Flanagan, Chair of the Senate Education Committee, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate it.
Susan, you have a good day. Thank you.
You too.